My name is Daniel Foster, and I'm about to tell you the story of how one decision destroyed everything I thought I knew about my life. I'm 71 years old now, sitting in my small apartment in Portland, Oregon, looking back at the events of 3 years ago that changed me forever. If you're watching this, please leave a like to bring some joy to this old man's heart. Subscribe so you don't miss my other stories, and tell me in the comments where you're from and what time it is there. It makes me happy knowing people around the world are listening. Back in March 2022, I was 68 years old and married to my wife, Catherine, for 42 years. We had what everyone called a solid marriage. 2 grown children, 3 grandchildren, a nice house in the suburbs. I had retired 2 years earlier from my construction company, and Catherine had retired from nursing. We were supposed to be enjoying our golden years together. But something felt off. It started small. Catherine began going out more often. Book clubs on Tuesdays, volunteer work on Thursdays, coffee with friends on Saturdays. At first, I thought it was healthy. She deserved her own activities after decades of hard work. But then I noticed the lies. Small ones at first, then bigger ones that didn't add up. Let me take you back to the beginning, so you understand who I am and how I got here. I was born in 1954 in a small town outside of Eugene, Oregon. My father, William Foster, worked in a lumber mill. My mother, Dorothy, raised 4 kids while working part-time at the local diner. We weren't rich, but we had everything we needed. I was the oldest of 4 children. My brothers, Thomas and Joseph, and my sister, Helen, all looked up to me. Our house was a simple wooden structure with a fireplace that my father built himself. Winter mornings in Oregon were cold and damp. The rain would come down for days, turning everything muddy. But inside our home, it was warm. My mother made the best pot roast and apple pie in the county. On Sundays, the whole family gathered around the table, and those meals are some of my best memories. I went to Lincoln Elementary School, about a mile from our house. I walked there every day with my siblings, rain or shine. Education wasn't as important back then as working and helping the family. I only made it through 8th grade before I had to start working full-time. When I was 14 in 1968, I started working at my father's lumber mill during summers. The work was hard and dangerous. I saw men lose fingers, get crushed by falling logs. But it taught me the value of honest labor. My father would say, "Daniel, a man's worth is in his hands and his word. Keep both clean." I never forgot that. By the time I was 16, I was working full-time at the mill alongside grown men. I was strong for my age, and the foreman, Harold Peterson, took a liking to me. He taught me how to operate the heavy machinery, how to measure cuts precisely, how to turn raw timber into something useful. Harold had no sons of his own, just 3 daughters, so he treated me like the boy he never had. I remember the summer of 1970, when I was 16. There was a terrible accident at the mill. A load of logs broke free from the crane and came crashing down. 3 men were injured badly. Harold pulled me out of the way just in time, probably saved my life. After that day, he told me, "Daniel, you're not just a worker anymore. You're my partner." Life in the early 1970s was simple but good. On weekends, we played cards at the community center, went fishing at Clear Lake, or attended dances at the church hall. I wasn't much of a dancer, but I enjoyed watching people have fun. Television was still new to most families in our area. Entertainment meant sitting on the porch, telling stories, and drinking cold beer on hot summer nights. In 1972, when I was 18, tragedy struck our family. My father had a heart attack while working at the mill. He collapsed right there on the factory floor. I was the one who found him, tried to revive him, but it was too late. He was only 47 years old. That death changed everything for our family. My mother fell into a deep depression. My younger siblings were still in school and needed support. At 18, I became the man of the house. I took over my father's position at the mill, working double shifts to keep food on the table. Thomas was 15, Joseph was 13, and Helen was only 10. They all depended on me. Harold helped me get promoted quickly, and within a year, I was making enough to support the whole family. It was in 1974, when I was 20 years old, that I met Catherine Reynolds. She had just moved to our town from Seattle to work as a nurse at the local hospital. Catherine was beautiful, with long auburn hair, green eyes, and a gentle way of speaking that made everyone trust her. I met her when I brought my brother Joseph to the emergency room after he broke his arm falling from a tree. She was the nurse who treated him, and I was immediately drawn to her. "You're very calm for someone whose brother just got hurt," she said to me while wrapping Joseph's cast. "I learned early that panicking doesn't help anyone," I replied. She smiled at that, and something clicked between us. Before I left the hospital that day, I asked if she'd like to have coffee sometime. She said yes. Our first date was at Millie's Diner on Main Street. We talked for 3 hours straight. Catherine told me about growing up in Seattle, how she always wanted to help people, which led her to nursing. I told her about losing my father, about working at the mill, about taking care of my family. She never once made me feel less because I didn't have much education. "You're doing something beautiful," she said. "Taking care of your family like that." We dated for 2 years. They were the happiest years of my young life. Catherine was different from the girls in our small town. She was educated and had seen the world beyond Oregon. But she never acted superior. She came to Sunday dinners at our house, helped my mother in the kitchen, and played games with my younger siblings. My mother loved her. "That girl is special, Daniel. Don't let her go," she told me. By 1976, I knew I wanted to marry Catherine. I had saved up money working extra shifts at the mill. I bought a simple engagement ring, the best I could afford, and planned to propose at Sunset Point, a beautiful spot overlooking the valley. It was September, and the leaves were turning gold and red. The air was crisp and clean. I got down on one knee by the old oak tree and asked her to be my wife. She cried and said yes immediately. We got married in January 1977. I was 22, and she was 23. The wedding was simple but beautiful, held at St. Mary's Church with about 50 guests. We had a reception at the community center with fried chicken, potato salad, and a small cake my mother baked. A local band played country music, and we danced until midnight. We started our married life in a small rental house near the hospital where Catherine worked. It wasn't much, just 2 bedrooms and a tiny kitchen, but it was ours. Catherine continued nursing while I worked at the mill. We both worked hard, saving every penny we could. Our dream was to buy our own house and start a family. In 1979, when I was 25, I got an opportunity that changed our lives. Harold Peterson was retiring and offered to sell me his share of a small construction business he owned on the side. It was a big risk. I would have to leave the security of the mill and start something new. Catherine and I talked about it for weeks. "If this is what you want, I support you," she finally said. "We'll make it work together." I bought Harold's business and renamed it Foster Construction. At first, it was just me and 2 employees, doing small jobs around town. Building decks, fixing roofs, small renovations. The work was hard and money was tight for the first year. There were nights I came home exhausted, covered in sawdust and paint, wondering if I made the right choice. But Catherine never complained. She worked extra shifts at the hospital to help us get by. By 1981, Foster Construction was growing. Word spread about our quality work and fair prices. We started getting bigger contracts, building entire houses, commercial renovations. I hired more workers and bought better equipment. Catherine joked that she was jealous of the business because I spent more time there than at home. But she understood. We were building something together, a future for our family. In 1982, when I was 28, Catherine told me she was pregnant. We had been trying for a couple of years, so the news filled us with joy. She continued working until her 7th month, then took time off. I built a nursery with my own hands, painting it yellow because we didn't know if we were having a boy or girl. Catherine sewed curtains and blankets, preparing everything with so much love. Our son, Nathan, was born in December 1982. He was a healthy baby with a loud cry and strong grip. Holding him for the first time, I felt a love I didn't know was possible. "You're going to protect him and teach him everything," Catherine said from the hospital bed, exhausted but glowing with happiness. I promised I would. Nathan became the center of our world. 3 years later, In 1985, our daughter Victoria was born. If Nathan looked like me with dark hair and brown eyes, Victoria was the image of her mother. Red hair, green eyes, a smile that lit up every room. Our family felt complete. The house that once seemed spacious now overflowed with toys, laughter, and the beautiful chaos of raising two small children. The 1980s were good years for us. Foster construction became one of the most respected businesses in the area. We were building homes, schools, even a small shopping center. I had 20 employees, and the money was finally comfortable. In 1987, when I was 33, we bought our dream house. A beautiful 4-bedroom home with a big backyard, white picket fence, and a porch where we could sit and watch the sunset. Catherine went back to nursing part-time when Victoria turned 3. We hired a wonderful woman named Betty to watch the kids while we worked. Life had a rhythm to it. Weekday mornings were busy getting the kids ready. Evenings were family dinners where we all sat together. Weekends were for barbecues, trips to the beach, and Sunday church services. I thought this was how life would always be. The 1990s brought more success and stability. By 1990, I was 36 and foster construction was thriving. We expanded into larger commercial projects, building office buildings and apartment complexes. Nathan was 8 and already showing interest in construction, asking me endless questions about how buildings were made. Victoria, at 5, was more artistic, always drawing and painting. Catherine was promoted to head nurse at the hospital in 1993. I was so proud of her dedication and skill. Our children were growing up healthy and happy. Nathan played Little League Baseball, and Victoria took piano lessons. We were living the American dream. On Sundays, we hosted big family dinners. My mother, now a widow for over 20 years, would come over with my siblings and their families. I grilled steaks on the barbecue I built in the backyard while the women prepared salads and desserts. In 1995, when I was 41, we faced our first real test as a couple. There was an economic downturn, and construction work dried up. I had to lay off half my workers and take out a loan to keep the business afloat. It was a stressful time. I wasn't sleeping, worrying about money constantly. But Catherine stood by me. She picked up extra shifts, helped me manage the books, and never once complained about our tighter budget. We survived that difficult period and came out stronger. By 1997, the economy recovered, and foster construction bounced back bigger than before. I rehired workers, took on new projects, and even expanded into neighboring towns. Nathan graduated high school in 2000 and decided to study civil engineering at Oregon State University. I was bursting with pride. My son was going to college, something I never had the chance to do. Victoria graduated in 2003 and chose to study art education at Portland State University. Both our children were pursuing their dreams, and Catherine and I felt we had done something right as parents. The house felt emptier with them gone, but we adjusted. Catherine and I had more time together, went on weekend trips, reconnected as a couple after years of focusing on the kids. In 2005, when I was 51, Nathan graduated with his engineering degree and came back to work with me. "Dad, I want to help modernize the company," he said with the enthusiasm of a young graduate. He brought new ideas, computer programs for project management, modern building techniques. Together, we took foster construction to new heights. It wasn't just my company anymore. It was becoming a family legacy. Victoria took a different path. After graduating in 2007, she became an art teacher at a middle school in Portland. She loved working with kids, inspiring them to be creative. In 2008, she married her college boyfriend, Anthony, a graphic designer. It was a beautiful outdoor wedding in June with 200 guests. Nathan was married a year later to his girlfriend, Patricia, a lawyer he met through mutual friends. By 2010, I was 56 and a grandfather. Nathan and Patricia had twin boys, Cameron and Tyler. 2 years later, Victoria and Anthony had a daughter named Sophie. Being a grandfather was even more wonderful than being a father. I spoiled those grandkids, building them a treehouse in our backyard, taking them fishing, teaching Cameron and Tyler how to use tools. Sophie loved when I drew pictures with her. Catherine retired from nursing in 2015 at age 61. She had given 40 years to helping others, and I was so proud of her service. I semi-retired the same year, at 61, handing most of the daily operations to Nathan. I still went to the office a few times a week, mostly to consult on big projects or just to feel useful. We bought an RV and started taking trips around the country, visiting national parks and historical sites. The years from 2015 to 2019 were peaceful. We were living the retirement dream. Catherine joined a book club, started volunteering at the hospital gift shop, and took pottery classes. I joined a woodworking club, played golf with old friends, and spent time with my grandchildren. We celebrated our 40th wedding anniversary in 2017 with a big party. All our friends and family came to celebrate. Catherine looked beautiful that night in a blue dress, and I felt like the luckiest man alive. But looking back now, I realized that was when things started to change. It was subtle at first, so subtle I almost missed it. Catherine began going out more frequently. The book club that met once a month suddenly met every Tuesday. The volunteer work at the hospital expanded to Thursdays and Fridays. She joined a hiking group that went out every other weekend. At first, I was happy she was staying active and social. Then I started noticing small inconsistencies. One Tuesday, she said she was going to book club, but when I mentioned it to our neighbor, Florence, who was also in the group, she looked confused. "We didn't have a meeting this week, Daniel. It was canceled because Emma was sick." When I asked Catherine about it later, she said I must have misheard her. She had gone shopping in Portland, not to book club. More strange things happened as 2019 progressed. Catherine bought new clothes, nicer than what she usually wore. When I complimented her on a new dress, she seemed uncomfortable, saying the hospital volunteers suggested she update her wardrobe. She started wearing makeup more often, getting her hair done every 2 weeks instead of monthly. "I just want to take care of myself now that I have time," she explained. It seemed reasonable. I also noticed she was on her phone constantly. Catherine had never been big on technology. She barely used her cell phone before, often leaving it uncharged for days. Now it was always in her hand, and she took it everywhere, even to the bathroom. One night I woke up at 2 a.m. and she wasn't in bed. I found her in the kitchen in the dark, typing on her phone. When I asked what she was doing, she jumped, nearly dropping it. "Just checking messages from Victoria," she said quickly. "She's been having trouble sleeping." The next day, I casually mentioned to Victoria that her mom said she'd been texting late at night. Victoria looked confused. "No, I've been sleeping fine. Why would she say that?" I made an excuse and changed the subject, but my stomach twisted. Catherine had lied. This wasn't a misunderstanding. It was a deliberate lie. That was when the doubt really started to grow inside me. In early 2020, right before everything in the world changed, Catherine announced she was taking a computer literacy class in Portland. "I don't want to be left behind with technology," she said. The class was every Tuesday and Thursday afternoon. She would drive the 45 minutes to Portland, take the class, and come back in the evening. I thought it was great that she wanted to learn, even offered to take the class with her, but she said it was specifically for women. After a few weeks, something made me suspicious. One Thursday, I was having lunch with my old friend Kenneth, who lived in Portland. I mentioned Catherine's computer class, and he said his wife had looked into taking a senior technology class in the city but couldn't find one. There were online courses, but no in-person classes for seniors at any of the community centers. That information stuck in my mind. The next Tuesday, after Catherine left for her class, I did something I never thought I would do. I followed her. I kept far enough back that she wouldn't notice my truck. She drove toward Portland like she said, but she didn't go to any community center or school. She pulled into a nice restaurant downtown. I parked across the street and watched. My heart was pounding so hard I could hear it. 10 minutes later, a man walked up to the restaurant entrance. He was tall, probably in his late 60s, with silver hair and expensive-looking clothes. He went inside, and through the window, I saw him approach Catherine's table. She stood up, they hugged, not like friends but like something more, and sat down together. They were laughing, leaning close across the table, and she touched his hand in a way that made my blood run cold. I sat in my truck for 2 hours, watching them through that window. The way she looked at him, the way she smiled, it was how she used to look at me 40 years ago. When they finally left the restaurant, he walked her to her car, kissed her on the cheek, and held her hand for a long moment. Then she drove away, and he got into a luxury sedan and left in the opposite direction. I drove home in a daze, my mind racing. Who was this man? How long had this been going on? I got home before Catherine and tried to act normal. When she arrived an hour later, she was cheerful, talking about what she supposedly learned in her computer class. I wanted to confront her right there, but something stopped me. I needed to know more. I needed to understand the full extent of whatever was happening. For the next 2 weeks, I became someone I didn't recognize. I checked Catherine's phone when she was in the shower, but it was password protected now. I looked through her purse and found restaurant receipts from places she never mentioned going. I checked our credit card statements and saw charges at hotels, expensive dinners, shops in Portland. When I asked her about the charges, she always had an explanation. A gift for Victoria, lunch with friends, a hotel where the volunteer group had a meeting. I felt like I was going crazy. Was I being paranoid? Was there an innocent explanation? But then I remembered that man, the way they looked at each other, and I knew in my gut something was terribly wrong. I needed proof, real proof. That's when I came up with the plan. My brother Thomas, who lived in Seattle, had been having health problems. I told Catherine I was going to visit him for a week to help him with some house repairs. She seemed relieved, even encouraged me to go. "Thomas needs you," she said. "You should be there for him." But I wasn't going to Seattle. I was going to stay nearby and watch what Catherine did when she thought I was gone. I told Nathan I was visiting Thomas, packed a bag, and left on a Monday morning. But instead of driving north, I went to a hotel on the other side of Portland. I checked in under a fake name, paying cash. For the first time in 42 years of marriage, I was deceiving my wife. The irony wasn't lost on me. That Monday evening, I drove back to our neighborhood and parked my truck 3 blocks away where it couldn't be seen from our house. I walked through the woods behind our property and positioned myself where I could see our backyard and the back entrance. I felt ridiculous, like a character in a detective movie, but I needed to know the truth. The sun set and lights came on in the house. Catherine moved around inside, normal evening activities. Around 8 p.m., a car pulled into our driveway. I recognized it immediately as the luxury sedan from the restaurant. The man got out, looked around quickly, and went to the front door. Catherine opened it before he could knock. She must have been watching for him. They embraced in the doorway, and then he went inside. My house. The home I built with my own hands. This stranger was inside it with my wife while she thought I was hundreds of miles away. I stayed in those woods for 3 hours, watching shadows move past the windows. The rage, pain, and betrayal I felt were unlike anything I had experienced. This was worse than any business failure, worse than any loss. This was the woman I built my entire life with, the mother of my children, my partner for over 4 decades, and she had brought another man into our home. Finally, around 11 p.m., the man left. They kissed at the door, a long kiss, before he got in his car and drove away. I didn't confront her that night. I went back to my hotel, barely sleeping, planning what to do next. Part of me wanted to storm in there and demand answers, but I needed to understand everything first. The next morning, Tuesday, I waited near our house again. Catherine left around 10 a.m., and I followed her. She drove to the same restaurant in Portland. The man was already there waiting. They had lunch together, walked around downtown holding hands like a couple, and then went to a hotel. I sat in the parking lot of that hotel, staring at the building where my wife was with another man. I felt numb. All the years we spent together, all the struggles we overcame, the children we raised, the life we built, and it meant nothing to her. She was throwing it all away for this stranger. I waited 4 hours until they came out. They kissed goodbye in the parking lot, and she drove home. I followed the man instead. He led me to an upscale neighborhood in Portland. The house was beautiful, probably worth over $1 million. He pulled into the driveway of a modern 2-story home. I parked down the street and wrote down the address. Later, using a computer at the hotel, I looked up who owned that property. The name came back as Lawrence Whitmore, A retired investment banker, widowed 3 years ago. So that was who he was. I spent the next 2 days gathering information. I hired a private investigator, something I never imagined doing. The investigator was a woman named Karen, professional and discreet. I gave her all the information I had, and she went to work. Within 3 days, she had everything. Photos of Catherine and Lawrence together at restaurants, hotels, walking in parks. Phone records showing hundreds of calls and texts between them over the past 18 months. 18 months. This had been going on for a year and a half. Karen also discovered that Catherine had told people in Portland she was a widow. She introduced herself as Catherine Reynolds, using her maiden name, and told new acquaintances that her husband died of cancer 2 years ago. She had killed me off, erased me from existence, so she could have this new life with Lawrence. The investigator found social media posts where Catherine appeared at events with Lawrence, tagged as his partner. Comments from people saying things like, "So happy you found love again," and "Your late husband would want you to be happy." I sat in that hotel room reading the investigator's report, looking at the photos, and something broke inside me. This wasn't just an affair. It was a complete rejection of our entire life together. She had rewritten history, created a new identity, and I was dead in her version of events. How do you come back from being killed off by the person you love most? On Friday afternoon, I decided it was time to confront her. I drove home while she was out, let myself in and waited. When Catherine walked in around 5 p.m., she seemed shocked to see me. "Daniel, you're back early. Is Thomas okay?" Her face showed surprise but also fear. She knew something was wrong. "We need to talk," I said calmly. I had rehearsed this moment 100 times, but now that it was here, I felt strangely calm. I laid out everything on the kitchen table. The photos, the phone records, the investigator's report. Catherine's face went pale. She tried to speak but no words came out. "How long were you planning to keep this going?" I asked. "Did you ever plan to tell me, or was I just supposed to stay dead in your other life?" She started crying, big tears rolling down her face, but I felt nothing. The man she was crying to was already dead. She had killed him 18 months ago. "I can explain," she finally said. "Can you?" I replied. "Can you explain how you told people I died of cancer? How you've been living a double life for a year and a half? How you brought that man into our home, the home we built together?" She couldn't look at me. "It just happened," she whispered. "I met Lawrence at a charity event. He was kind and interesting. We started talking, and it felt nice to feel wanted again. You were always busy with work and the kids." Her excuses made me angry. I was busy building a life for us. Everything I did was for this family. And you felt unwanted? "Catherine, I have loved you for 42 years. I gave you everything I had." She shook her head. "You gave me everything but yourself, Daniel. When did we last have a real conversation? When did you last look at me the way you used to? We became roommates, going through the motions." I felt invisible. Part of me wanted to understand, to see her point, but the betrayal was too deep. "If you felt that way, you should have told me. We could have worked on it. But instead, you created a whole new life and killed me off in it. You didn't just cheat, Catherine. You erased me." She cried harder, trying to reach for my hand, but I pulled away. "Does he know the truth now?" I asked. "Does Lawrence know I'm alive, that you're still married?" She shook her head. "No. He thinks I'm a widow. Daniel, please, we can fix this. I'll end things with Lawrence. We can go to counseling. I made a terrible mistake, but 42 years has to mean something." I looked at her, really looked at her, and realized I didn't recognize the woman sitting across from me. "It did mean something," I said. "But you destroyed it. You didn't just have an affair. You invented my death. How do I forgive that?" I moved out that night, staying at the hotel while I figured out what to do next. I couldn't tell our children yet. How do you tell your kids that their mother has been living a double life? That she told strangers their father was dead? I needed time to process everything. Catherine called and texted constantly, begging me to come home, to talk, to work things out. I ignored most of the messages. I had nothing left to say to her. A week later, I met with a divorce attorney. At 68 years old, I never imagined I would be getting divorced. The attorney, a woman named Rebecca, listened to my story with a sympathetic expression. "This is one of the most painful cases I've handled," she admitted. "The depth of deception is unusual. We'll make sure you're protected financially and that the truth comes out." I appreciated her honesty. This was going to be ugly. Before filing any papers, I knew I had to tell Nathan and Victoria. I invited them both to dinner at a restaurant, without their spouses, without Catherine. They could tell something serious was happening. Nathan asked if I was sick. Victoria wanted to know if the business was failing. When I told them the truth, showed them the evidence, they were devastated. Victoria cried. Nathan got angry, wanting to confront his mother immediately. "How could she do this to you? To our family?" he demanded. The next few months were the hardest of my life. News of the divorce spread through our community. In a town where we had lived for decades, where everyone knew us, the gossip was brutal. Some people took Catherine's side, believing she must have had good reasons. Others were sympathetic to me but kept their distance, not wanting to choose sides. I felt isolated and alone. The life I had built for nearly 70 years was crumbling. Catherine moved out of our house and rented an apartment in Portland, closer to Lawrence. Apparently, once the truth came out about me being alive, Lawrence was furious and ended their relationship. He felt as deceived as I did. Catherine lost both of us. Part of me felt she deserved it, but another part, the part that had loved her for 42 years, felt sad for her. She had destroyed everything for something that wasn't even real. The divorce was finalized in November 2020. We split our assets 50-50, which was fair even though I wanted to fight for more out of anger. The house was sold. Our children were civil to their mother but distant. The grandchildren asked questions we didn't know how to answer. Family holidays became awkward, separate events. Everything that had been whole was now broken into pieces. Now, 3 years later, I'm 71 and living alone in a small apartment. Nathan runs foster construction successfully, which gives me pride. Victoria still teaches and keeps in touch regularly. The grandchildren are growing up, and I see them as often as I can. I've adjusted to this new life, found a routine, made peace with being alone. I won't lie and say I've moved on completely. Some wounds don't fully heal. Catherine tried to reconcile several times over the past 3 years, but I couldn't go back. The trust was destroyed too completely. I heard she moved to Seattle last year, trying to start fresh where people don't know her story. We haven't spoken in over 2 years. Sometimes I wonder if she regrets what she did, if she understands the magnitude of her choices. But mostly, I don't think about her at all. If there's one thing I've learned from all this, it's that you never truly know another person completely. 42 years together, and she was capable of something I never imagined. I also learned that you can survive things you think will destroy you. At 68, I thought my life was over. But I'm still here, still standing, still finding reasons to smile. Life is strange that way. It breaks you down and then somehow gives you the strength to rebuild. If this story touched you, please leave a like to brighten this old man's day. Subscribe to hear more of my stories. And tell me in the comments, where are you from? What time is it there? Have you ever been betrayed by someone you trusted completely? How did you survive it? I'd love to know I'm not alone in this. Thank you for listening to my story.